All right, so welcome to Leadership Choices. We're going to go through your syllabus in this video and just kind of get you started. And then we'll kind of work through over the next few weeks some different subjects. Just to start off with, I'm probably going to do this course and your next one, which will be your final one in terms of your concentration for management. I'm going to do those more in the traditional style that we have been doing. It's not going to be independent study. I'm going to try and give you a lesson every week for these final two to kind of really reinforce some of the instructional material and really kind of finish strong with these. Okay, so go ahead and get out your syllabus and we'll kind of walk through this. The textbook for this one is a John Maxwell book, and it's Talent is Never Enough. And so this is a good one in terms of getting your business off the ground, and not in terms of the systematic things you do, but in terms of how you approach it, right? Your own determination level, your own perspective on your contribution. So I think this is a really excellent one because leaders make a lot of choices. It's not just systematic choices like management, right? It is also, a lot of internal wisdom kind of things. And so we're going to look through in this course at a few different really kind of hinge leadership choices. I'm going to do a little bit with best practices and kind of determining that for your own business. I'm going to do some things with maybe even look at some the spiritual side of leadership, being a godly leader. I'm going to look at motivation and how you motivate people as a leader. And then we'll see. Those are the three core areas I want to touch on, and maybe we might be able to bring in a couple other things. But best practices, so as a leader, how do you ensure that your business is doing things the best way, right? There's a whole bunch of ways to do every individual process. So as a leader, that's a very important aspect of business. Then the spiritual side of things. How do you maintain godliness? How are you led by the Lord while you're leading? That's an important part. Spiritual leadership, perhaps we might call that. And then the other one is motivation, right? So I've got some really interesting research to share with you on what really motivates people, right? And how science research has really helped us to understand people. And it's often counterintuitive to what you would think and what we've been taught in many business books and things like that about what really motivates people. So we're going to get into some of that in this course as well. All right, so let's look at your syllabus. You've got two papers due, one in week 4, one in week 7. And you've got your final in week 8. Also in week 7, you have a reading quiz, right? So let's look at your two papers. Your first one is due in week 4. So that's going to be one of the earlier assignments that you have for this course, right? And that's your motivation research paper. Okay. So I put that one at the beginning because I'm probably going to lead this course with the lectures on motivation, right? So that so I would hold off at least for next week's lesson, because next week, week 2, I'm going to be teaching on motivation, and that might spill over into week 3. But I would at least wait until you get that first lecture on motivation before you launch out into your paper, right? And so I want you to do some of your own research, right? So based on class discussions, your own research, I want you to compile a research report on effective motivation strategies. But you're going to want to hear the lesson first, right? Because what you may have in your head is effective motivation may be contrary to what I'm going to teach. So I'll at least hold off until next week on that one. This is a 4 to 6 page paper, and it will require as many sources as needed. So I'm not giving you a number. You're at the end of kind of your concentration, senior level classes, right? So what I'm giving you a little freedom there. So I'm not giving you a specific number, but use whatever you need to make the paper work, right? Okay. And then your second paper, which is going to be due in week 7, is on being a cultural architect, and that's another one that I'm going to try and throw in. So we're going to have motivation, best practices, cultural architect, and spiritual leadership, right? So on that cultural architect, I will also teach that one about midway through, so that you're able to at least understand what I mean by that concept, right? So I would hold off on that one till you get that lesson as well, right? But those are all coming. So that's a 5 to 7 page paper. In fact, I might do cultural architect right after motivation, just in case anybody needs to get their stuff done early. But so we'll do a few lessons on motivation, and then a few lessons on cultural architect, and then I'll fill best practices in spiritual leadership. All right. So you don't need sources for this assignment, right? But it does need to be between 5 and 7 pages, right? So for the first one, you should have some sources. You're doing research on motivation strategies, right? The second one, based on the lesson I teach on cultural architect, about what a cultural architect is, then I want you to come up with some of your own thoughts based on that idea about what it means to be a cultural architect, right? So I say in this paper you will write in more of a personal, reflective voice instead of a research tone, right? So in other words, all that means, that's just a fancy way of saying these are your own thoughts, right? That I want you to elaborate on how you see a leader in that role as cultural architect, and what does that mean for them to fulfill that. You can apply it to your own business if you want. What does it mean for you to be the cultural architect in your own dream business? Right? I think you need to maybe in the paper you hit generally what a cultural architect is and what that means to you, and then maybe have some sections on how you apply that to your own dream business, and what that's going to mean for you in reality when you're doing what you're wanting to do later in life, right? Okay. And then, you get your standard reading quiz in week 7, you've got your final in week 8, and then your 3 discussion boards, right? Okay. So I would, the John Maxwell book, I would start your reading for this course, and then after next week, use this first week or two just on reading, and then after next week, when you get the first of the motivation lessons, if you want to start your paper, then you can do that, okay? So if you've got any questions, feel free to let me know, okay?